rational exponents. So the first thing we need to do is review what rational means when it relates to numbers. If I have a rational number, what can you tell me about it? Rational numbers. Rational versus irrational.
It's whole.
You're thinking of integers. Up to this point, all of our exponents have been integers. Rational means what? Not whole. Well,
They're confusing.
how about 1
Fractions.
half? Is that a rational number?
Yes.
Okay, how about pi? Is that a rational number?
Yes. No, because no.
Okay, if I can write a number as a fraction, it is a rational number. That's the definition of rational. Okay, so if I can write a number as a fraction, it is a rational number. So when we look at rational exponents, that means we're going to be looking at exponents that are fractions and what they mean. So first, let's start with something that you know. 2 to the third power equals 8. Everybody familiar with that? That makes sense. You've seen that before. So what that means is, if I turn it around and I look at its inverse, the cube root of 8 is equal to 2. Does that make sense? If I take the cube root of something, that means that some number times itself 3 times is equal to that number. So 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Its cube root is 2. Now, where the rational exponents come in, if I am taking the cube root of a number, I can write that as 8 raised to the 1/3 power. So 8 to the 1/3 power is the same as 8 to the cube root of 8, which is 2. So it's just a new way to write things that you've already seen. Questions on any of that? Okay? So if I am given something with an with a rational exponent, and I want to change it over to radical form, I have a to the 1/2. How would I write that in radical form? Square root of a. So the first problems you're going to do on your assignment, that's what you're going to be doing. They'll give it to you in radical form. You write it in fraction or in rational form, or they'll give it to you in the rational form and you write it in radical form. So the first few problems, that's all you have to do on your assignment. Now let's look at how we apply this. So if I have to evaluate 16 to the 3/2 power, well, if you just look at it all together like that, that's a lot going on in one place. So the first thing I want you to do is break it down into its individual parts. 16 to the 3/2 power is the same as 16 to the 1/2 raised to the 3rd power, because remember what we just did with exponents, a power raised to a power, you multiply them. 3 times 1/2 is 3/2. And what I just did there. Okay? Now, I'm going to rewrite this in radical form because that's what you're used to looking at. So that's the same as the square root of 16 raised to the 3rd power. Well, do what's inside the parentheses first. What is the square root of 16?
4.
So this is the same as 4 to the 3rd power. What is 4 to the 3rd?
64. Wait, so what did you do with the 3/2? Drop it?
No, I decomposed it. I took it apart. 16 to the 3/2 is the same as 16 to the 1/2 raised to the 3rd power. I just broke it into its 2 different parts.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So it goes like 16 to the 5.5 and just be 16 to the 1.5.
So you always break it. You're going to have it as improper fractions. If it was 5/2, it would be 16 to the 1/2 and then to the 5th on the outside. Okay. So let's look at one where I have a negative exponent involved. Now, myself, and you can do these in different orders, but myself, when I look at a negative exponent, the first first thing I want to do is deal with the negative exponent. They're confusing, so deal with that first. Now look here, what does a negative exponent tell me? What's it going to do to that number? No, it's not going to make it a negative. That's where the confusing part comes in. It's the reciprocal. Okay, so careful with that. If it's a negative exponent, it's a reciprocal. So in order to get rid of that negative, I would write this as 1 over 32. Say it, you gotta write it. To the 3/5 power. Okay, so everybody see what I did there? So that's the first thing I would do, get rid of any negatives. Then I'm going to break it into two parts like I did here. So this is 1 over 32 to the 1/5 raised to the third. Put the top part on the outside, the fractional part on the inside. So this is the same as 1 over the 5th root of 32 to the third power. Well, what number times itself 5 times makes 32? 2.
Truth saying 2, and I'm thinking that's solid.
It is 2. 2 to the 5th power, because 2 to the 5th equals 32. So this would be 1 over 2 to the third. What's 2 to the third? No, that one. 1 over 8. Okay, so break it into parts. Do it one piece at a time. You try and do it all at once, you're going to confuse yourself.
There's not an easier way to do this? Oh. I'm not using page yet.
Okay, so let's look at another one. We have the cube root of negative 27. So you can evaluate it right like this, or you could write it as negative 27 to the 1/3. Both of those would mean the same thing. So what number times itself 3 times?
3.
3. Okay. Makes negative 27.
3i.
Because if I go negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Well, negative 3 times negative 3 makes a positive 9. A positive 9 times a negative 3 makes a negative 27. Now here's a rule for you to think about. If I'm taking an odd root, if I have an odd number here, 3, 5, 7, whatever, then there will always be one real root, one real answer to that equation, whether it's positive or negative underneath there. And if it's negative here, it stays negative out here. If it's positive here, it stays positive out there for odd roots. So odd roots always have one real root. And again, if it's negative, it stays negative. If it's positive, it stays positive. It's going to be different for even ones, and I'll look at that here in just a minute. So let's apply that here to this one. If I have the cube root of negative 8. Negative 2. So that's a negative 2 to the 4th power. Now what is negative 2 to the 4th? 32 is to the 5th. So 16 to, and is it going to be positive or negative?
Negative.
I hear both, so let's
Positive.
check
It's
it.
positive.
So I take negative 2 times negative 2. Okay. So a negative 2 times negative 2 is positive. This negative 2 times negative 2 is positive. So anytime you raise something to the an even power, your solution will be positive. Okay, does that make sense? Questions? Okay. If in doubt, write it out like this and figure out what it should be. Okay, last one on this slide, and then we're going to look at some different ones. Okay, 125 to the 2/3 power. Again, I'm going to break it into its different parts of the fraction. So I've got 125 to the 1/3, and that is squared. So 125 to the 1/3. What number times itself? 3 times make 125. 5. Okay, 5 times 5 times 5.
So you got 5 squared then?
So then I will, so inside is 5. So 5 squared is 25. Okay, so break it in its parts and it's not too bad. Questions on any of that stuff? Okay, let's keep looking. We're going to find the nth root or roots of a. So the nth roots, where n is 3, of a equals 216. So I'm going to rewrite this as x to the 3rd equals negative 216. Okay, so that's what it is we're asking for, is to solve that equation. X to the 3rd equals negative 216. So that means x equals the cube root of a negative 216. What times itself makes a negative 216? 6, and since it's an odd root, it has to be negative. Okay? Negative 6. Now, let's look at a different one. We've got n equals 4, so I have x to the 4th equals 81. So I'm going to take the 4th root as both sides. X equals the 4th root of 81, or 81 to the 1/4 power. What times itself 4 times makes 81? 3. Now, this is an even exponent, so it's a little bit different. Is there more than one number to do that? Negative 3. So if you have an even root of a positive number, you have 2 solutions. Now, remember when we talked before, I said, well, there's going to be 3 solutions to a equation with x to the 3rd, 4 to this one. How come I only got 1 solution here and 2 solutions here? What are the other solutions going to be? They're imaginary. Okay? There's only 2 real solutions, and today we're only looking for the real solutions. Okay? So you don't have to worry about the imaginary ones. So the ones to the odd powers will have 1 answer. The ones that you're taking an even root will have 2 answers, or in the case of this one, I have x squared equals negative 9, or x equals the square root of negative 9. I'm only looking for real solutions. So this one, in the real number system, we can't take the square root of negative 9, so the answer here would be no real roots. Where if it asks us to find roots. So no real roots. So even roots will either have 2 solutions or 0 solutions. Odd roots will have 1 solution. Now there is one exception to this. If I take the square root of 0, how many solutions do I have?
0.
0. So that's the one case if I take an even root that I only have 1 solution. Okay, questions on that? You're going to like this part. You get to use your calculator.
Ah, I forgot.
You might have to share with somebody, borrow one.
No.
Okay, we're going to use a calculator to evaluate it. You need to be able to do this both ways. We're going to divide it to 2 decimal places. So in your calculator, you will enter this way. I have 4, find the caret, raised to, parentheses, 2 divided by 5, close parentheses. That's what you enter into your calculator. Somebody who's got it, give it to me to the nearest 2 decimal places. What is it? Equals 1.74. Anybody that's got their calculator not get that? Okay. Same with this one. We have 64 raised to, now be careful, raised to, not an A, raised to, now the negative sign, not the minus sign, 2 divided by 3.
Oh, yeah.
What is it? 0.06. Now when you write that, I want to put a 0 in front of it, 0.06, because that helps keep that little decimal place point from getting lost. What?
So 0.065 if you round. 2.
Okay, we're rounding to 2 decimal places. Oh. So is it 0.06?
I got 0.0645.
Okay, so it should be 0.06. So you went rounded to 2 decimal places, that is rounded correctly. Okay, now be careful when you have a negative number underneath of the radical sign. Now before you can put this in your calculator, you need to convert it to rational forms. So I'm going to say this is negative 30. It's a cube root, so it's raised to the 1/3 power squared. So now I would write that as negative 30 to the 2/3 power. So in your calculator, don't forget the parentheses. Parenthesis negative 30, close parenthesis, raised to, parenthesis, 2 divided by 3, close parenthesis. What do we get? 9.65. Is that a positive number or a negative number?
Positive.
Because it's squared here, so it should be positive. Okay, last one. What am I going to put in my calculator for this one? 6561 raised to what power?
Probably the 4.
1/4. And if you 1 divided by 4, you could type it in as 0.25. That's fine. What do you get? 9. Okay, questions? How to make that work? Now I want you to try one more thing for me. I don't have it written up here, but I'm going to add it. Take the 6th root of a negative 22.
Impossible.
What does your calculator tell you?
Error, non-real.
Error, non-real answer. So if you enter it correctly, your calculator can help you out with that. If you're doing this and you're finding the roots and you're taking a 4th root and you get an answer, don't forget to do plus or minus. 4th root, 2nd root, 4th root, 6th root all have 2 solutions. Okay, question.